Okay, so when it comes to drawing people, there are a lot of different ways to do this. I tend to go with more of a kind of general faceless style, so that's really what I'm going to focus in on today. But just know that there are a lot of different ways to go about this, and this is only one technique. So the first thing that I like to do is actually use reference photos. So I'm going to use a couple. The first one is going to be of standing. So I've got my amazing parents on their wedding day. I'm going to use that photo as a reference. And just know that it doesn't have to be the exact style of clothing that you're going for, but it's helpful to understand about how bodies are positioned before we actually start going through the drawing stages. So here, my dad, he's facing forward, like he's pretty straightforward and front facing, whereas my mom has her shoulder turned a little bit. So I picked this picture because it's going to help really understand positioning and how our posture can really play a role in how we are drawn. So I'm going to start with my dad. And the first thing I do is very lightly, and I always use a pencil, very lightly draw a circle. But not just one circle, really go around it multiple times. And the reason for this is because you want to try to get a good oval circle. And if you just draw one circle, all right, that may not be so great, okay? But if you do it a bunch of times, then you can kind of get a basic outline and then draw a little bit thicker around the general shape. And I tend to do like the bottom 2/3 of the head and then leave the top because I'm gonna add hair in later. So I know that that's a little different angle, and that's totally okay. We can kind of manipulate a little bit of the angles. It's not going to be perfect, right? But here we've got the basic bottom part of his face. And then we've got his neck here, and it's not a super long neck, and so I'm going to again draw like an oval, just a little bit at the base of his head. And then his shoulders are going to be the next oval. And I essentially just do ovals and round blocks for the entire body. And then I'll go through and do thicker lines and then erase. Okay. So we've got his shoulders going here. Now I want to actually do the actual shoulder. I'm going to do another circle on each side. Okay. And then I'm just going to do in the torso, so that is going to end right about here or so. So I'm just going to make some more circles. Okay. And notice that the torso does not go all the way out to the shoulders. Torso cuts right here, so we've got some space for the arm. And I just need to kind of have about a distance, a length there. And I can now put in the arm. So we see that this one's coming out just a little. We've got the elbow bend, and then it goes in toward the body a little more. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna have it come, the elbow will be right around here. So we're gonna have it out at a very slight angle. I do like to actually draw in those joints and then have it come in to where it's actually going to cover part of his leg. So right around here. And then I do circles for the fists. Okay, then I'm going to do his hips, which are right around here. And again, those hip joints. And then his leg is pretty straight here, and you can see that the pants kind of bow out a little bit. That's not too important right now. What we're really going to focus in on is just the shape of that leg. So it does kind of, the legs kind of come out just a little bit and then go back. We've got our kneecap there, and then we've got our foot. Okay. Now, because my mom is on this side, I can go through and do the other leg. So again, out just a little bit, and it's going to come back in. Okay. But I don't want to quite do that arm because I know that my mom is kind of blocking that arm a little bit, at least with the bouquet. So I'm going to kind of see, all right, the top of her head kind of comes right around my dad's eye line. So the top of her head is going to be right around here. Okay, and then the bottom of her, like her chin, is going to be about level with his shoulder. So knowing that, I can draw the circle for her face. Okay, and remember, this does not have to be exact, especially because you are creating your own characters, you are drawing your own people. So if they're a little bit different than your reference photo, that's totally fine. You don't even need to use a reference photo, but if you have some ideas in mind, this can help when looking at proportions. So again, I have her neck. Now it's a little bit longer. We can see a little bit more of a distinction. So I'm gonna just have it not quite so flat like my dad's was, more of a ball, okay? And then her shoulders, we've got a little space back here and a larger space up here. So I'm actually going to angle it a little bit, okay? So just a little bit here, and it's gonna be longer in front and kind of angled downward a little bit more. Okay, so in the end, it'll end up both being angled down, but while we're doing this, we're just gonna have it a little off to the side, okay? And then again, we are still going to draw in those shoulders. And here my mom's arm is bent, so we're gonna take it down to about her waist, and her waist is pretty close to my dad's hips, so we're gonna draw in her torso. And we can see that since her arm cuts in right there, it's going to be right around here-ish. So we'll draw that first portion of her arm, draw her elbow, and then it cuts almost exactly in. Okay, and then have her hand. And then this arm is going to come down. It's hidden behind the flowers, but you know what? We know that it's going to come down. And it's going to meet my dad's right around here. And then I can draw in his arm. Okay. And then we know that her legs, since she's in a dress, this is a little bit different. We don't have to worry about drawing in the legs specifically, but I do still want to do that so I can kind of anticipate what's the general shape going to be. Okay. If I don't want her in a wedding dress, then I can always make some adjustments, but I gotta know what is the shape of her body. So I can kind of guesstimate. Again, these are pretty rough circles, I know. Okay, and I'm actually going to have my dad's thighs be a little bit bigger. And his shins a little longer, so his feet aren't so angled down, okay? So now we've got this really rough outline, really rough sketch, and we're going to go ahead and do kind of like with this, do the basic outlining of a body, right? So I know that this is where my dad's neck is. I don't want to necessarily like just outline everything. I want it to still kind of have the flow of a body. So I'm just going to start here and kind of have it a little bit angled down. We can see that that's a neck. And the shoulders are slightly downward angles. So we're gonna just take it down a little bit and then cap it for that shoulder. Again, just down a little bit and cap it. Okay. And then I'm going to go along the outside. Okay, and I always take it in at the wrist a little bit, so that way when I do my hands, you can really clearly tell that there's a distinction between the arm and the hand. So it goes in a little bit, and then we take this up. We want to take this a little bit higher than the actual joint, okay? So it's actually gonna be about halfway up to that elbow, and then come back to where it's just like a little bit of an overlap here, and take this arm most of the way up. So that way we can see that there's a little bit of a bend here. It's got a little definition, and then we can see a little bit of texture, okay? And if you mess up a little bit, that's totally fine. And then I'm going to take and do the same with my mom. So because there's going to be an overlap here, I want to actually outline the body that's in front first. So again, I'm just going to go along this here. Okay. Do that neck. And see, we've got that definition down here, so we're going to still have that, but it's a little bit longer on this side. Okay, you can actually see the neck start back here. And then downward on the shoulders, slightly downward on the shoulders, but it's up a little bit higher, because if we actually take the pencil and we do a straight line, you can see that they're not exactly even. One shoulder is down here and one is up here. Okay. So I'm just going to do the same thing that we did on my dad's, but when we get down here to the elbow, instead of just having it be a slight bend, it's going to be quite a bit more dramatic. Okay. And this is where if you wanted to put in like some kind of florals or bouquets, whatever you're representing here, you're more than welcome to. But maybe instead, you know, I'm just going to do a really simple flower, then I don't have to worry about covering up the hand. Okay. And again, we are going to take this in and have it go actually pretty close to the elbow and then cut it up. Okay. And we're going to take this arm down. It's a little bit more of a sharp turn. Okay, so it's a pretty gradual slope here, and here it's much sharper. And we're going to take that down, have it go closer to my dad. And again, we've got that slight bend. Then I'm going to take this, have that very slight overlap on this side. Okay. And then I can go and do my dad's. I'm going to have that, when we create the armpits, we want them to try to come up about the same. So that's why I said over here, if you end up messing up, it's okay. That's why you use pencil. I took it up a little too high, so I want it to be here. And then I'm going to have a little bit of his arm kind of poking through here. So you can see that they're holding hands. Okay. And then for a more of a feminine shape, you will want to try to have just a little bit of an outline. And then take this down. Once you get to the hips, you're gonna wanna like actually take it out just a little bit. I'm gonna have a little bit lighter of a dress represented here. So have it come down to about the shins. And then take, so since my dad's arm is in the way here, I'm just gonna kind of cut away and then have this flow. Okay, now that I've drawn in most of my mom, I can go through and erase the light pencil marks. Okay, so when you do those initial circles, you really want to do it pretty lightly so that they erase easily. Okay. And again, it's not perfect. This is a very rough, you know, concept and a rough design. It's just a fun sketching style. And then now that I've got that all drawn in, I can like add in my flowers, right? If I want to do a little bit of a simple flower bouquet. Okay. And then since her feet are popping out, I'm just going to have her legs, and then her feet will be here. Okay. And then for her hair, she's got some short, flowy hair. And instead of having it be the wedding gown, I am going to just have it be a nice little sundress. There we go. We can go back through and kind of do some waves to identify that it's curly hair. Okay. So there we go. Really rough outline of my mom. Then we're going to do the same with my dad, but since his arms are more down by his side, his torso is going to come out a little bit more, so we're actually just going to start partway down his arm. And again, we do still want to have the hips come out just a little bit. Okay. And then his legs. Okay, so notice that this one's a little bit straighter, and then this one has like that, like a swoop to it. So I do want to try to kind of emulate that a little bit. And since he's wearing pants, I'll just go ahead and take those all the way down. And then have his shoes kind of poking out. They aren't going to go exactly to the side. Okay, and you'll notice that we got a little bit off, and that's okay. That's why we just do the really light sketches first. As we go, we can figure out what we do or don't like. Go through and erase those extra lines. Now, since he is going to be wearing pants, we're going to have the waistline indicated here. And then he is wearing the long sleeve, so we're going to cuff it here. And then we'll just pretend that he's actually wearing a crew neck, right? Okay, and there we have it. There's a very rough but fun kind of style character. Oh, and we gotta fix his hair. So he's got a little bit fluffy hair with the side part. That's why it's fun to kind of base these on reference photos, because then you can have an idea of the kind of style or person you want, but you don't have to follow it exactly. Okay, so that's one. This is how to draw people standing and from a reference photo.